In the long, warm summer of 1914, a strange optimism filled the air across Europe. A generation had grown up without a major continental war. The memory of large-scale conflict had faded into the pages of history books. For many, war seemed a noble adventure, a brief and glorious affair to test the mettle of a nation. Young men, swept up in patriotic fervor, rushed to enlist, believing they were embarking on a heroic journey. Their leaders and generals, confident in plans and new weapons, assured them it would all be over by Christmas. They could not have been more tragically mistaken. What was meant to be a short, sharp shock became a 4-year nightmare of unprecedented scale and brutality. This was World War I, the war that shattered the old world and created the modern one. Beneath the seemingly placid surface of early 20th century Europe, powerful and dangerous currents were swirling, pushing the continent ever closer to a precipice. 4 major forces were pushing the world toward war. Militarism. Germany and Britain raced to dominate the seas. Military leaders gained enormous influence over governments, alliances, the Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia. The Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. These alliances meant that one local conflict could drag everyone in. Imperialism drove rivalries across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Nationalism surged, especially in the Balkans, where tensions were explosive. All Europe needed was a spark. The location for the fateful spark was Sarajevo, the capital of the Austro-Hungarian province of Bosnia. The 28th of June, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were on an official visit. Many Serbs in Bosnia resented Austro-Hungarian rule. A small group linked to the Black Hand saw an opportunity. Their first attempt failed when a bomb bounced off the Archduke's car. The Archduke stopped at the town hall and then continued. A route change was ordered, but the driver wasn't told. He turned onto a side street and was forced to stop and reverse. Gavrilo Princip stepped forward and drew his pistol. He fired 2 point-blank shots, killing both the Archduke and his wife. Shockwaves rippled across Europe. The July crisis began. Austria-Hungary issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia, backed by Germany. Russia mobilized. Germany declared war on Russia and France, invaded Belgium. Britain declared war. Within days, Europe was at war. The generals of 1914 believed in a war of movement, of sweeping advances and decisive flanking maneuvers, but modern firepower proved overwhelming. After the Marne, the Western Front froze. Trenches soon stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland. Life was horrific. Mud, rats, lice, and disease. Soldiers lived inches from death, fear and monotony intertwined. Trench fever and trench foot ravaged the ranks. The stench, water, rot, unburied bodies, and poison gas was overpowering. After barrages, whistles blew, and men climbed over the top. They crossed no man's land, mud, craters, tangled wire, and were cut down in waves. Battles like Verdun and the Somme became symbols of industrialized death. Shell shock, what we now call PTSD, scarred minds. For survivors, the war was a deep and lasting wound to the soul. 19th century tactics collided with 20th century technology. The machine gun made charges suicidal and ruled no man's land. Aircraft leapt from scouting to aerial combat and bombing. War reached far behind the front. Civilians felt the sky's terror. Poison gas, chlorine, phosgene, mustard brought new horrors. It blinded, burned, and destroyed lungs, killing slowly. Masks helped, but fear of a silent cloud remained immense. Tanks, slow and clumsy at first, pointed to future warfare. Beneath the waves, German U-boats hunted commerce, aiming to starve Britain, a strategy with world-shaking consequences. War had entered the modern age, and humanity was not ready. The old certainties of the 19th century were blown apart by artillery and buried in the mud of Flanders. To understand our modern world, we must look back to this catastrophic event. This was not just a European conflict. It was truly global. In Africa, grueling campaigns seized German colonies and tied down vast forces. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers. Gallipoli bled and failed. Disastrous setbacks in Mesopotamia reshaped the Middle East. The Arab Revolt, aided by British officers, planted seeds of future conflict. In Asia and the Pacific, Japan moved to capture German holdings. Over 1 million Indians and troops from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa made enormous sacrifices. France drew on Africa and Indochina to fill its ranks. Millions more labored as porters and factory workers. Blockades and convoys turned oceans into battlefields, starving economies and striking civilians. Entire societies were mobilized for destruction. This was total war. For 3 years, the United States remained officially neutral. President Woodrow Wilson was re-elected on a promise of peace, yet American loans and supplies flowed to the Allies. The catalyst was unrestricted submarine warfare. The memory of the Lusitania and new sinkings fueled outrage. Then came the Zimmermann telegram, a proposed German-Mexican alliance. When published, American opinion turned decisively. In April 1917, Wilson asked Congress for war, to make the world safe for democracy. It took months to raise, train, and transport an army. But money, industry, and the Navy worked at once. Fresh American power boosted Allied morale and materiel, tipping the balance against the Central Powers. The tide was turning inexorably. By 1918, both sides were at the limit. Germany gambled on a final blow before US strength arrived. The spring offensive surged forward, stunning gains but costly. Exhaustion and thin supply lines stalled the advance. American troops helped halt the onslaught. Under Foch, the Allies struck back in the 100 Days. Combined arms pushed the German army back. German lines, weary and demoralized, began to collapse. Germany's allies fell away one by one. Mutinies and uprisings toppled the Kaiser. A new government sought terms. Negotiations set the armistice. On November 11th at 11 a.m., the guns fell silent. The war was over, but peace would prove just as dangerous. In 1919, leaders met at Versailles to decide Germany's fate. Idealism clashed with exhaustion and revenge. The treaty blamed Germany entirely and imposed harsh terms. Territorial losses, a reduced army, a demilitarized Rhineland. Crippling reparations destabilized the economy. Resentment festered, empowering extremists. Empires fell, German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian. Maps were redrawn. Revolution spread and society shifted in profound ways. The war to end all wars became a warning humanity ignored. If you want a full breakdown of World War II, The Rise of Hitler, or Untold WW1 Stories, subscribe and stay curious. History always repeats itself unless we understand it.